Welcome back to Season 4 of the Sober Motivation Podcast. Join me, Brad, each week as my guests and I share incredible and powerful sobriety stories. We're here to show sobriety is possible, one story at a time. Let's go! In this episode, we have Aaron Goodvin, who talks about his experience growing up in a small town in Alberta, Canada, and how he developed a deep love for country music. Aaron shares the influence of his family's love for music and campfires. He discusses his journey with alcohol, starting from weekend drinks with the band to facing a DUI in Nashville. Aaron shares how close he was to losing everything, including his wife and career, and that became a turning point for his sobriety. He emphasizes the importance of asking for help and finding support. And this is Aaron's story on the Sober Motivation Podcast. How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode. No episodes last week, so we're going to get two coming your way this week. Starting with Aaron's story first, incredible episode. As always, if you want to support the podcast, head over to buymeacoffee.com/sobermotivation. Everything helps keep things afloat. Pays for all the subscriptions and all that cool stuff that we don't need to get into. But thank you guys, as always, for listening along. Hope you find something in this story that you can relate to. I think a lot of you will. Incredible to have Aaron as a guest, so let's get right into it. Welcome back to another episode of the Sober Motivation Podcast. Today we've got Aaron with us. Aaron, how are you?
So good. How are you, Brad?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Thank you for making some time during your busy season to jump on and share your story with all of us.
Absolutely. No, it's, I feel like the busiest 2 weeks of my life are over. That was a crazy last run of shows we had with some, not only just crazy travel, mostly self-inflicted issues where, you know, I messed up time zones, which I do all the time, and almost missed a flight. So it was funny when we started chatting over Instagram, I think I was in the middle of all of that kind of stuff. So it's good to be here.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. So what was it like for you growing up?
Yeah, so I grew up in northern Alberta, Canada, a little town, very small town. Just, you know, everybody knows everybody kind of a thing. My family is all still for the most part up there. My mom and dad are in Edmonton, but the family that I grew up with, just country music, loving, you know, I have a new song coming out actually it's already out, but coming to the radio here soon up in Canada called Said No Redneck Ever. And that whole song is basically, you know, my family growing up, you know, lots of campfires and playing guitars and singing songs to the wee hours of the morning. I had a really great family. You know, we grew up in a great place. You know, I loved growing up in northern Alberta, and we looked for any excuse just to get together and be together. And so that's sort of the way I grew up. So,
yeah, well, that's interesting, man. Yeah, sounds great, dude. So I definitely was going to ask, like, when the music and stuff started for you, and that was, you know, from early on.
Yeah, it was very early. I just grew up around it. I always joke I was 12 years old when I found out not everybody loved country music, and I was devastated. I was like, what do you mean they don't love kind of like, that's like the best music ever, you know? And just because I grew up with it. And so all my uncles and my aunties played, both my parents played. None of them did it professionally. I was the only one who had the grandiose dreams, you know, enough to be able to be like, oh, I could do this for a living, you know? And I just started writing songs and playing because I found out that was a really good way to get girls to like you. And so I was like, oh, let's do this. This sounds great, you know? So,
yeah. Yeah, great. Thanks for sharing all that with us. What was it like, though? I mean, kind of what brings us together in the podcast is, you know, obviously sobriety and everything too. And I think there's always, you know, hearing all these stories, right? There's people with really good, you know, a lot of memories from childhood that end up struggling with alcohol. And then there's people too with, you know, obviously a rougher start to life that struggle too. And it sounds like for you, things were, you know, pretty good. School and everything like that was good for you. When does like alcohol come into the picture? What are your early memories of that and what that looked like around you?
Yeah, I mean, so I was always around alcohol. I've talked to my parents about this a long time, but my parents were weekend drinkers and they would get a 6-pack. I mean, we weren't rich people by any means. And I didn't really start into the drinking until I started playing music. And I think for me, like one of the moments that I remember was I had put my own band together, which everybody kind of told me not to do. They're like, "Oh, I do really well up here because I hire all these hired guns." And I was like, "I want a group of young guys up there with me." So I got a group of young guys, and I remember we played this place called the Palomino Saloon in Sherwood Park. Probably played it about 8 times before any other band had played it. And the owner came up and said, "Let's go do a shot before you get on." And I said, "Oh no, it's okay, man. We don't drink when we play." And he just sort of looked at me, and then he just started laughing. And I wasn't sure how to take it. But then, I was like, okay, well, one shot, whatever. It's not going to be a big deal. And I remember, I remember leaving that place probably 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock every morning. Every time we played there, it was a lot of alcohol. It was a lot of drinking. And I think that was part of and then it sort of became a part of the dream, right? So the dream was like, have all these successful records and be a big superstar and just drink and be a rock star. That became a part of what it was all about for me, So early on, the drinking was like, I was very focused. I was very, I was like, but all my guys wanted to drink, and I always wanted to be a part of that, Another thing I just want to mention on the growing up side of things is like, I looked up to a couple of my older cousins, and they could drink beer. It felt like they could drink beer all day, and it just didn't faze them. Right. And so for me, it was like, oh, I want to be able to do that, and the people that I looked up to, and I have a completely different and new and great relationship, with those same cousins. So I've just realized it's just something that doesn't work for me, so.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think too, when we're growing up, like, we're really impressionable from how, other people and people we look up to and people we want to fit in with and be like, but I think like even me with all the growth on this journey too, I think too, realizing on the sober side of things is not everybody drank for the reasons I drank or the way I drank, even though I saw them maybe overdoing it here or there. A lot of people went on with their life afterwards. They weren't thinking about the next one or the next party or everything else too, right? So I didn't see the whole picture. So as you get into this, you get into kind of the the vision there of drinking and partying and traveling the world and all I can imagine kind of what things were like for you. Do you see any problem with it as things started, or was it just kind of like that's what everybody was doing? I'm in there.
Yeah, it was. For me, there were plenty of. I could have chosen plenty of rock bottoms and plenty of times to stop. And in fact, I got a DUI in Nashville when I moved down here after and I just quit like cold, turkey. I just like white knuckled it. I didn't really deal with any of the issues, and the reason I quit is because if they, give me another one of those, they could kick me out of the country. And my biggest dream was to be, down here writing songs and making that. This was my whole goal in life, was to write and be an artist. And so when that was threatened, I was like, oh, I'll just stop. COVID was a big eye opener because there was literally the reason for living. The only thing that I had at that time was like connecting with people through music and playing shows. And so you take that away and it's like, what's the point really? And then you sort of fast forward, I got married and my wife is American. So then I became American citizen. Well, once I was this, an American citizen and had a passport, they can't kick me out, Yeah. So like that thing that was sort of like, hey, you can't drink was gone. And so like it just started slowly kind of creeping back into my world and until it was like a full on problem again. And like I've just realized over the years, like I just don't drink the way other people's drink. And I can't really pinpoint exactly which time that I drank that it was like, but like towards the end, I just loved to drink because I love to drink. It had nothing to do with who I was with or what I was doing or, that's how I drink. It's like, I just want to pound him back until I black out, like that's just the relationship I have. And I realized like my dad blows my mind. He can have a drink, he can have a beer and he can stop. It's like, that blows my mind. I'm like, how do you do that?
It's crazy. Exactly. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. When you go back to, when did
Mhm.
you, like, what did you do after high school? Like, what was your direction
I
after
just
that?
played, yeah. So I just, when I was younger, I played shows as much as I possibly could.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know. And then when I moved to Nashville, I played shows and drank, and then when I moved to Nashville, it got even 10 times worse, because Nashville is just like, you could take any small town, like where maybe when I was playing on the weekends, I didn't drink all week, but then I would drink on the weekends. Or there was a time where I pretty much just drank every night, and I got in a relationship that, needed the alcohol. Otherwise it wasn't going to be a relationship,
Yeah.
just the way it worked. And so, there was just, I know I'm hopping around all over the place, and I apologize. I'm also ADD. So I need to bring that up. And I was half deaf when I was born, with half my hemorrhage strep, spent a lot of time in the hospital. So I often look back and go like, man, did my liver just give up a long time ago, because it's just like they were pumping drugs into my system just to keep me alive when I had mastoiditis. And so, like, I often wonder if that sort of played a role in how I handled alcohol, or how I drink, because, without paying any attention to what's going on in your body, you're sort of like, oh man, you don't even think about that. But when I look back on it, I often wonder if that's an issue. But
Yeah. That's,
yeah, pretty
yeah.
wild.
Well, it's interesting too there, where you mentioned the ADD aspect of things. Like, I was on this, in this rabbit hole today,
Mm-hmm.
because I have ADHD, and I
Mm-hmm.
was in this rabbit hole of looking at the connections of
Yeah.
alcohol and ADHD or ADD. It said this one study followed 100 people, and it said 50% more likely to struggle with like substance use disorder than somebody
100%.
without. I was like,
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah, those are pretty high numbers, and I think all of I think it's a combination probably of all of the things that sort of like, it's almost like there's a point where I thought that I could believe in what I was doing more so. Like, I'm actually kind of grateful for I was ADHD, so I have the hyper part too. But it's like when I was a kid, I was on Ritalin through school, and I was like, these were things that, like, just to get me through things, because I was very different than most others, I think.
Yeah.
And so, like, well, or maybe a lot the same. Maybe that's the dangerous thought that I get into. It's like, I'm so different than everybody. But because the thing that saved me was I found out I wasn't, so different than everybody. But yeah, I think that played a role. I think, like, just in I'm so grateful that I had it, though, because I don't know that I would have made it as far as I have in my career without the ADHD and without the alcohol, even to a point, because it helped me believe, right? Like, when you're in Nashville and you're struggling and you're drinking you go and write a song, and then you're drunk at the bar every night till 2 a.m. and you get up and start at 11 and you're done at 2 p.m., like start 11 in the morning, done at 2 p.m. and then go back to drinking again. It's like, it's almost like like I sort of needed that to make it in this town, just because I don't know how I would have handled, I don't know that I would have believed in myself enough. It helped me believe in myself, right? That was probably one of the things that was like, oh man, I need, whether I did or I didn't, it just helped me, so
Yeah.
it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I think that's one of the things with alcohol too, that I think maybe we don't talk about a lot, is how helpful it does feel for some, chapters of life, right?
Yeah. But this town is so difficult.
Yeah.
Like that. It's like, how do you make it if you don't? Like, when literally no one is telling you, like, the thing that I thought that I had when I moved to town was that I was very talented and I could write songs and I could sing. And when I look back on it, that was almost a detriment, because at the time I moved here, they just want to take it's sort of all ego driven, right? So, like, these big head label people, they just want to take somebody who shouldn't be a star and make them a star, who can't sing, who doesn't have the talent. And so when I looked at that, I was like, well, the thing that I have is the thing that they don't want. So if you don't have the alcohol, like, telling you, like, hey, you can do this and you can make it, or friends that don't even exist anymore, I hardly talk to, telling you you're so great and you have to stay in this town, and I don't know that I would have made it. So sorry, go ahead. You can continue.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's incredible. Thanks for sharing that. I mean, paints a picture for, I think for me and probably other people that were, it's not the lifestyle, but it makes sense to keep things going. I mean, probably too, I would imagine there's a lot of disappointment that you might go through and a
Oh, I
lot of
mean,
things that don't work out.
on the daily, and it's the highs and the lows. Excuse me,
Yeah.
the yin and yang, the black and white, if you will. Which
Yeah.
when I finally made a commitment, and well, I mean, I was met with the circumstances that I think I had to meet with in order to even continue going, because it was, I don't want to go into too much detail because not a lot of people know exactly what happened, but the bottom line is like, there's a really unfortunate situation in which I'm going to face a lot of consequences. Talking about, my wife leaving and being gone, was completely gone, not living at the house, and among other, legal things that were happening. It was just clear that like I needed to make a change, and the way I was doing things was just not going to work anymore. And the biggest threat was like, I thought I was going to lose everything. Like, in fact, if you had asked me at that time, when I'm walking down we don't even have sidewalks in our neighborhood, and I'm walking down the street and I've got tears in my eyes, and I don't know what to, like, I'm literally at the end of losing everything that I worked for, and just everything, my career, my wife, my family, all those things. Like, had I kept going, that's where I was headed down. And that's really what I didn't want. And so all I could do at that point was like, I just called my wife and I said, hey, I'm going to take $5,000 out of our savings. I'm going to go to an outpatient rehab so that I can continue to do shows. The only way we were making money is that I was playing shows, because we were in the middle of COVID or we were coming out of COVID.
Yeah.
And shows were starting to come back, and my career in Canada has been so amazing and so great that like, a show would come up and it could literally help us for the month or the 2 months sometimes. So it was literally like, I wasn't really writing for another company. So it's just like the income was like, this is what I have. So I committed myself to an outpatient rehab and pulled a bunch of money out of our savings account, just to be able to do it. And she was like, yeah, I think that's a good idea. And I was like, okay. So, and I did that. And then I don't even know how we got to where we're at now, which is still married with a beautiful child and a bright future. That part blows my mind. And it's clear, I think when I was drinking, the big thing that changed for me, my wife has always been very spiritual, but I never had a spiritual side, like really ever. Like, I had an ego driven thing that I called spiritual, but it was totally just like, me against the world, and I'm going to do all of these things, and I'm the reason that things happen, and I'm the amazing one, and I'm all that, to like almost a completely different person and a different way to live. And so like, I didn't, without me going to that rehab and getting plugged into, AA and learning the steps and learning that I'm not the only one that's the way he is, and to developing that spiritual side, because now I can look back on it and go, if I was running my life the way that I would run my life, I would not be where I'm at. Like, I definitely wouldn't still be married. I definitely wouldn't have a beautiful child, a bright future, all those things. Like, I've learned to let go of all those things and have that spiritual side. But without that, I would be completely lost, and we probably wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Probably not the other way of things. I mean, when was that? And like, what was it like leading up to it? I mean, you mentioned there COVID too, right? I mean, you're isolated. You're not doing what you love.
Yeah.
That amplified things.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, it was all the things that I'm sure a lot of people go through before the end of their drinking career. But, I mean, I was coming home from co-writes, grabbing beer on the way home. I know my wife would get home at 5, so I would stop drinking at 4 so that I could try and sober up by the time she got home. So I was, drinking on the way home, hiding it from my band. They knew, like, a song in there, like, oh, Aaron's drinking, because in the US we came back faster than in Canada. And so we were playing shows in the US, and it was also an extremely stressful time because I had a Sprinter van that was always breaking down. We weren't making any money. Like, if anything, I was spending money to play. So the added stress on that situation, when I really came back to it, as I was going to go fishing one day, and I was like, oh, instead I'm going to like move around some merch in the merch trailer and get that ready. Well, in my Sprinter van, my band had left a bunch of beer, and that's sort of like when it started, and then it turned into this, and then at the end it was orange juice and vodka, and then I literally did a social video so that I didn't look drunk. I did it first, and then my reward for that was the orange juice and vodka, the screwdriver, and then by that night I was in jail. So so by 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock that day. So so it's and I had a thing I had to drive to go work at in the studio, and there was more vodka there, and like literally the rest I could tell you, but I don't remember. I was blackout and I don't remember anything. So it's pretty pretty bad, pretty obvious circumstances, and I won't go into all the details of like what happened, but because honestly, I don't even remember. And that's the scariest part. I didn't know if I hurt anybody. I didn't know I didn't know what happened. I woke up and they were pulling blood out of my arm. That's all I remember. So pretty wild.
And I mean, looking back at things too, right? I mean, you kind of leave Alberta to chase this dream and this passion. And then, this is kind of where things end up. And I don't think any of us think at our, the first time we drank or first couple times, like, hey, this is where it's going to end up.
No. No. Well, and it's just like, absolutely, like, definitely not. And I mean, just definitely not. There's no, like, I feel like broke a record, but there's no way I would be where I'm at today if I just kept going. I mean, I probably wouldn't be alive. So, and there was a number of times in my life where that was pretty evident. And I don't know why this is the time where it was like, I think it was me losing everything because of the drinking, where it was just like, okay, well, I don't want to lose everything, and realizing that I don't want to lose everything, because I think when you're drinking, you're kind of okay with it. You're like, whatever, if I lose, whatever, I can get through anything. I've been through a lot of things before. And I think like just having it happen so many times and repeat so many bad situations in my life that have come from alcohol, it was like, for whatever reason, this was the rock bottom. And I was able to, not only find a place, because like I had been kicked off a tour for drinking before, started going to AA, and this was probably about 3 years before I actually quit this time around, where it's like I went to AA and I was like, I don't know, I don't really feel like I don't even know if I am an alcoholic. I'm just doing this because this is what everybody's telling me I got to do, and so I didn't really buy into it or believe that I really had a problem. And then this time was very obvious. That it was like, okay, I either make the changes or I lose everything. And I just wasn't ready to, I didn't want to lose everything, And so I was like, well, I've tried everything else. Let's just dive into this and see if it works. And I remember I went to my first AA meeting after being in recovery, and after being in what the heck am I trying to say?
The outpatient.
Yes, the outpatient. Thank you. I was in that, and I went to my first AA meeting, and they're like, you have to get a sponsor. And I was like, well, I didn't do that before. And so I literally just picked the first guy. I picked a guy who was holding a notepad because I thought that he was sort of helping run the meeting. And I was like, hey, do you want to be my sponsor? And he's like, sure. I didn't know that you could vet somebody. I just like picked the guy, and he's still, I mean, I just talk to him, I talk to him almost every week. That's a big part of my life, just having somebody that knows my situation and knows what I've gone through, and just being able to talk to them about stuff, big part of my life. So,
yeah. And somebody who understands it, right? Because there's a lot of quote unquote normies, right? I mean, they want to help and they want to support, but they don't necessarily relate, being good for them, but they don't relate to sort of the journey. So it's 100%. Good with people.
Yeah, no. And like the AA piece of everything is what's funny is I thought the outpatient was going to fix me. And then when I got out of outpatient, it's like, oh no, it's the plugged inness of being around other people that understand. And, I went in there the first time and I was like very, serious and very, and like now I'm in there and I can say things that I don't even think are funny. And now if you ever come to one of my shows, there's a lot of people that are like, you could be a comedian. And I do love comedy. I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
They're like, you could be a comedian. A big part of my show is like when I talk, you know, when I'm talking to people. But like the crazy thing about me going to an AA meeting is I will say something that I don't even think is funny. Like I'm not even trying to be funny, and they laugh, right? And I'm like, oh, these are my people. These are the people I need to be hanging out with. So so it's a lot of, you know, it's good. It's good. It's a good thing. Yeah.
The community aspect of it and just being on the journey.
Yeah.
I mean, we do it in every other area of our life too, right? If we're trying to do music, then we hang out with other people that do music or whatever it is, right?
Right.
We do it sort of naturally. Yeah, I'm wondering too, because you brought up before, it's sort of like the ego-driven life in a sense.
Yeah.
Of, doing everything your way. How were you able to step aside or work on that to be in this position to let other people help you, support you, and like be vulnerable? Is that relatable?
Say that again. I'm trying.
Like, how were you able to kind of get out of your own way in like with the ego of like, I'm going to do it my way and everything like that. But then when you get into recovery and sobriety, it's important, I think, to get support, let other people in, be vulnerable, share. And like, that's kind of like maybe the opposite of like, I'm a man and I'll just do it my way.
Right. You know? Well, I think the thing that sort of popped up for me is like, I've always been like by nature, like an open book. Like I don't really hide a lot of, and I sort of pride myself on being an approachable human. Like that's the part of like what I do that. And as an artist and as a songwriter, like literally that's where I would get therapy. You know, like people go to therapy. I went to therapy. I was like, this doesn't, but I go write a song and like that, you know, that's what songwriting is. It's like, you're very open, you're very vulnerable, and you're very like, this is what I'm going through and I want to write a song about it. So I think as a profession, it always sort of lent itself to, but I always thought it was me that was doing everything. And like, it had to get beat into my head because like, I'm typically very, very hard on myself. And I've always sort of been like a self-help lover, if you will, of like, I buy all the books and The Secret came out and I read all that and I read all the people in that. And I was like, oh, this is it. This is the whole thing. But for me, it was really like going to AA and learning to be open and having a sponsor that like I could go to about anything. Like, hey, I've got a lot of anger with this, you know, and they'd be like, oh, and then we could sort of break it down and like understand why. And then he could be like, I think you're being hard on yourself. Whereas my wife could say that and I could be, I'm not being hard on myself. But my sponsor says it and I'm like, oh yeah, you might be right. You know, so I think it's just like learning that, you know, there's people that you can lean on. And I don't even know if that answers that question at all, but like I have, as far as like getting out of your own way, like to me, that's what I learned in the process of recovery. I've learned to do that on a daily basis, right? It's like, I can only handle my side of the street. What did I had my wife and I have started a business that is like booming. It's crazy how well this business has done in the year and a half. We've hired somebody. It's like, we've got so much work. We got all this. And we had one situation last week where we had a client that just literally blew up, like the whole thing blew up in our face and their face, in everybody's face. And it's all because they didn't quite understand what it is that we were doing and what we were delivering and then how we were doing that. And they literally thought our whole business was like a sham, blah, 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 blah. They wanted all. If I was drunk, Aaron, in that situation, I would have taken it I would have made it so much worse than what it was. And I just had to, you know, like they're threatening to sue us. They're like, just all these crazy kind of things that we deal with, like without AA, without me being plugged in and without me knowing, I was like, okay, what did I do in this situation to cause this person to do this? And I sort of got to the bottom of it to a place to where I was like, okay, well, I'm okay. The whole thing is like, we just gave them all their money back and said, great, have a good one, you know. But the whole thing was like, for me to even get to that place, that would have never happened. So, you know, drunk Aaron would have never been able to even handle that situation because I'd be like, why are these people treating me this way? I'm this person, blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, sometimes it's just about for me, it's just about like, and it was very hard on me. Like, don't get me wrong. Like it took a week out of my life where I was like,
Yeah.
I was concerned with everything about this whole issue and why these people even thought of this. And then me trying to figure out like what happened, it took it out of me for a whole week. And so it was that part was very taxing and very hard on not on just me, but my wife and Sabrina works. We thought about this whole thing for a week and we just came down to the conclusion that's like, they just didn't understand and what they were getting. And maybe they expected more out of us. I don't know. But like my whole thing was like, I did everything. I can sleep at night pretty well because I know that I handled my side of the street and that is literally all I can do. Whereas I think before when I was alcohol, I was like, how can I manipulate these people in this situation? How can I take something and be like, no, it's my way. And this is how, instead of just being like, hey, God's going to take care of this. That's the part I didn't have before. I just didn't have that. I didn't have any sense or any relationship with the higher power, like none. Like I thought it was all me. So it's like the part that I have now, it's like, okay, all I can do with this is like, I can send them their money back and I can say, hey, I'm sorry, this was a miscommunication, blah, blah, blah. Here you go. I don't even know what they wanted out of it, to be honest. And now I can just like, I can let that go and I can just be like, okay, it wasn't me. I did everything that I could possibly do in this situation. And I've learned from it, and I've moved on. And I think that like that whole situation, I bring that up because for me in my life, that could have been the end. That could have been the end of everything. Just literally, I was like, I'm quitting everything. Screw this business and all this stuff. And just learning how to deal with those types of situations when really all you're really trying to do is just help somebody get to the next level. Just help somebody do something and be passionate about people, and they can just take it a completely different way. And it has but learning that it has nothing to do with me. That is all on them. I can only handle my side of the street. So yeah. I hope that answered that question. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think it just shows the massive growth too, right? And we hear a lot too, right? Life on life's terms,
Yes.
Like we hear that too, right?
Yes.
About things and,
all the time. Life on life's
and,
terms.
Yeah. And like what other people do is their reaction is something they got to figure out. It's not our responsibility. With the country music scene though, too, because you're mentioning the songwriting and everything else, and I'm a big fan of country music, and I'll be honest, sometimes I'm in the mood for the drinking songs and sometimes I'm not in the mood for the drinking songs. What's that like, navigating that sober? And I think that, even like learning about people and their sharing their sobriety, like I learn all the time that there's more and more, big stars or whoever it is, right, that are sober. That kind of surprises me, but still still do songs about drinking. I think, it's kind of what people enjoy. But what's your thoughts on all of that? And
well, it was one of my biggest fears in that it was like, how am I going to, in the beginning, it was one of my biggest fears. Like, how am I going to sing to an audience that is drinking and getting drunk and telling them I'm sober, and what's that going to be like? But I can safely, I can say with a lot of confidence that all that was just a fear, because as I continue in this, like down this kind of sober path, and I've sort of found this like new way to live that really works for me, I still sing songs. I still have drinking songs. Like I had drinking songs. I don't write drinking songs anymore. And the way that I write them is very different than I used to, because I'm not the one who's going to go out there and party with people. But like we have a new song out called Said No Redneck Ever that it's literally me singing about people drinking, but I'm not the one who's drinking. I still love that lifestyle. I still go out in that lifestyle. I don't spend a lot of time, I'm going to go to bed as early as I can, but it's like, cause I like to go to bed and get some sleep. But it's like, like I say, it was a really big fear. When I tell an audience, like we just came off, I played 8 shows in 10 to 9 days or something. It's crazy. But every night I'm like, I'm 3 years, 3 months and this many days sober. And the whole audience applauds. There's not one person there that's not, because like they recognize that for me, that's something that I'm proud of. And maybe, and it's been the most rewarding thing, because I'll have people come up and be like, I got 13 years, or I got 35 years, or I got 1 year. One of the ones that I can't get out of my head is this lady came up. She's, my daughter is newly on a sober path. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. Not knowing that her daughter was right behind her. And I said, well, that's so great. Like, I wish you the best with that. Like, it's a really great way to live. And then she was right behind me, and she goes, well, she's right here. And I was like, oh, well, nice to meet you. And I was like, good for you. And she asked me, do you go to meetings? And I said, yeah, I do. I said, I'm going to be completely honest. I've been very busy, so it's been very hard for me to get to one. But whenever I have a chance, I go. And she goes, well, I've been in 2 meetings. And she goes, I haven't spoke up yet. And I said, well, that's okay. Just speak up when you're ready to speak up, but just keep going to those meetings, because you can learn a lot from them. And so, like, just being a part of that conversation and being somebody that maybe she's inspired by, just hearing like that, to me is what the whole sober community is all about. And especially like that early in sobriety, for her to know that I go to meetings and that she can go to meetings and not say anything until she's ready. What an amazing gift that is to be able to give somebody. Like that's the thing for me, where I was like, oh my, like I get in America, they call them chill bumps, goosebumps. I don't know why they call them chill bumps. But I get goosebumps just thinking about that, because I'm like, oh man, like that's so, what a great thing to be able, and I think in order to have this thing, you have to be able to give it away. So I'm very public about my sobriety. We just got offered a show that's a sober recovery show, in September, which is so cool. Like, I think there's a whole audience out there that I think is sort of starving for that, because I think there's a lot of us that want to be sober. And I also think that the newer generation isn't as crazy about drinking as maybe ours was, because ours is just, it's run rampantly, and so like I say, it was a big fear in the beginning. I still write drinking songs. I have no problem writing a drinking song. I was a drinker and I liked to drink, I know what that feels like. And so I don't have as big of a issue with it as I used to. But like, one of my biggest hits is Lonely Drum, and it's literally about getting drunk and trying to get a girl to come over. So, it's part of the culture. I still sing it. I still lived it, But now when I write about it, it's usually like either a thing of the past or from somebody else's perspective, So
yeah, that's got to be a cool thing with all the music you've done too, and all the songs you've written, to see like in the lyrics, the growth or sort of how things have changed in your life too, to like where you were. And you know what I mean? Cause all the stories behind it, you know what I mean? You know all the stories behind it, and kind of what fueled it, the emotion and everything. This newest song though.
Yeah.
Walk us through that a little bit, man, because I want to share the story too. I was on Apple. You know the story, but I'll share
I love
the
story
with everybody. I was on Apple and I'm looking up new music to listen to, right? For my work day. I'm like, I've been listening to the same stuff. I'm like, I need something new. Right. So I check to see what's new. I see the, drink in hand. I listen to it and I'm like, okay, this is either somebody who's sober or there's something here. So then
there's something here.
I was like, they know too much. I was like, Aaron, knows too much about.
There's too many similarities in the writing. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and I was like, somebody who wasn't. I was like, it would be different if somebody who wasn't wrote it. But yeah, right. So I connected with you, and I was like, yeah, this is great, and here we are. But like,
I'm so glad you did, man. Like this, it was so awesome to just hear from you, and it's my favorite thing that happens with all of this is like the fact that like I literally had no control over that situation, and then here we are having a conversation about it. And maybe somebody hears my story, gets inspired. Here's anybody that you talk to in my world that maybe is looking for you, and I think that's like the whole I don't have control over any of that thing. When that turns to such a positive thing, I'm always so happy with it. So I'm glad you reached out. And and you were like, you know too much about this, you must be sober. So I think I probably wrote this about 2 years into my sobriety, and it was like a thing that I wasn't like, that I was finally just ready, like, hey, let's just go write some stuff like this, because I hadn't really done it yet. Like, I think in the first year of sobriety, you're just trying to last 24. You're just trying to get through the next day, And so I wasn't like that comfortable in like, hey, I'm ready to just like talk about this. But it was clear that day I had that title in my phone forever. Because like, it's like, I'm always sort of laughing and joking around about like me, like you probably see me, I'm just sipping on a coffee. If I wasn't sipping on coffee, it'd be a Diet Coke. Like I always have to be doing something with my hands. So, I'm always like, man, I need, I was like, man, this is kind of like my drinking hand, I need to have something in my drinking hand. And I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool title. And I brought it in that day with somebody that I'd written with before, Andrew Capra and Mary Cutter. We'd written a different song before, and I was like, man, they just really seemed to, I was like, I know if I just like open up and tell my story about where I'm at, what I'm doing, they're going to love it and they're going to want to make something out of it. There's a lot of rights that you go in that are very political in town, where it's like, you're going in, you're trying to write the big hit that everybody's going to want to cut the next day. You're sort of putting everything in there that's about that. I knew that they would be like, oh, and they're also, they've been fans of mine, which is really great. And they're like, man, let's write something for you. And I was like, okay, sure. I was like, well, I have this one thing. And I play Tennessee Whiskey every live show. Like, I'm a big Stapleton fan. It's literally my favorite song to sing. I love what he does. And it sort of has that kind of original nature in which it's like, he's not going to write something. Me and him actually write very similarly. I've never written with him, but he just goes in and writes whatever song is in the room. It's just whatever thing is happening with him that day. It's not that sort of political move. It's very, I'm just going to write what I want to write. And, granted, he had written a bunch of number ones before, so he can do whatever he wants. He's probably got enough money in the bank to kind of write whatever he wants to write. I'm still working on that. But I think so I went in that day and I was just like, I was like, I have this title called Drinking, and I want to write about my sobriety. And they're like, oh, I didn't even know if they knew I was sober. It was like one of those things where, because I hadn't drank for, it wasn't a public knowledge thing that I was like, oh, I don't drink, enough, now I think it really is, but obviously since the song came out, for sure. But so I was like, I got this thing. And so I sort of played the kind of guitar thing, and it just like literally just spilled out. And I pretty much wrote the whole thing because like, they weren't writing from experience, but like they were sort of helping me put it together. And I was like, I don't know if I like this or like this. And so that I just really, for me, co-writing is the greatest gift ever, because I don't remember the last time I wrote a song by myself. Like I almost need to be able to bounce stuff off of people and get the feedback from it immediately to be able to just put it together. Yeah. And we just like, I just wrote it from the perspective of, there's probably some lines you might want to bring up, but there's a lot of recovery talk in there.
Yeah, there is, man. I mean, I've got the lyrics right here, dude, and I highlighted some of the things, but
love it.
And I mean, we kind of touched on this a little bit, but you have the one line in there, what started off as fun had started changing the man, and I think that there's so many people that can relate to that, because for a lot of people, there were a lot of those good times, and then things change.
Yeah. And I think my favorite, absolutely. One of my favorite recovery lines, if you will, is like, alcohol stores stealing joy from tomorrow. And I always love that, because that to me is how I drank. It's like, no, I want it now. Like and what do I want now? Probably love, as much love as possible is what I want now. And so drinking could give that to me. If I went out and talked to somebody and they were like, oh man, been meaning to tell you that when you played that night, it was really great. Or to me, it's all about validation. Like, I think that's what we're all looking for as humans, is like what we're doing is the right thing, and we need to keep doing it. And so if I went out and drank and talked to people and they would tell me how great I am, or I played somewhere above it, like that validation is really what I was after. And so the drinking when it started changing the man was probably this last go at it. Where it was like, I remember sitting in bed with my wife, and she'd be right beside me, and she couldn't feel further away. And it was because she had to put up walls to block herself from what she ultimately knew was coming. Like, I was not the same person. She's like, it's not, drinking is not just a thing where you drink and you have fun. Like now you're not even a good you're an angry, you're just a different person. You're not even Aaron, like you're a different guy. And that's kind of where that line came from, because it really did. Like I went and it became apparent, like when I drank, that I was a different human being. I was just not I wasn't a good human being,
Yeah. This has become, I found towards the end, for me, it became a tunnel vision. When I started drinking, that's all I wanted to do. And I wasn't really worried about much other stuff. I mean, it's so interesting too, right? And you've shared about your relationship with your wife, quite a bit in the episode too. And I mean, I think it is always an incredible story of these other people. We're the ones who get sober and do it, but other people that, I almost look back at people in my life too. And I'm just like, I tell them all the time, even after all these years, like, I don't know how you did it, but like, thank you for doing it, because I don't know if I would have been able to do it for someone else. I'm like, that would really push me up against a tough place.
Yeah, absolutely. I probably don't tell her enough, but I'm so grateful that I think like when I met V, I was pretty lost. I don't know. I wasn't drinking at the time, but I just got that like first DUI, and I was very open about my issues and my problems and all the stuff that was going on. And I think that was something that she really saw in me, that not only was I open about it, but I was always the guy who's like, if something was wrong and I really realized that it was wrong, like I would try and find a way to change it. And I think that was something that she always liked about me, is like, it's like, oh, we got an issue with this. Like, oh, I'm going to try and become a better person and fix that, I think I just like, when this last bout came, is like, I really just felt like I had tried everything that I could possibly do.
Yeah. And
so there was a lot of give up in me. And that was the part that she didn't like. She was like, that's not who you are. Like, you're the guy who's going to, if there's like, you want to help and you want to change and you want to be a better person. But I'd sort of given up on that. And so she's like, well, that's not the person I fell in love with. You're completely different. I don't know what you are, but you're another guy. And absolutely, I often say the first time my wife came back was like to actually talk to me and have a conversation was, after she had left, it was like, I thought she was like maybe coming back to stay, and she was not. And that was really hard for me again, but I was like, okay, I just have to accept this and I just have to be okay with it. And but that conversation was like, hey, I'm not going to leave you hanging. Like, you have things you need to figure out. Like, we could figure some of these financial things out together and some of these things. She's like, I'm not just going to, because that's not who I am. And I was like, okay, yeah, and I had to like be okay with that. And looking back on that was so hard on me, but it was exactly what needed to happen at that moment. And somehow, like I say, I don't even know how she came back. Much like when we first got together, I couldn't even, one of my favorite stories about us first getting together is like, we realized 2 weeks after we moved in together that we moved in together. Like, we didn't even realize it in the moment. Like, she was getting out of school and I was like, well, I have a storage unit if you need a place to put your stuff. Cause she wasn't know if she's going to move back with her mom in another part of Tennessee or she was going to just like stay here. And I was like, well, I have a storage unit. I just rent it and you can put your stuff in there and we'll figure it out. Then she's at my house 2 weeks later. I was like, did we move in together? Did we even talk about this? Like, that's kind of how right it was, And I tried to fight that. Oh my Lord. But anyway, that's another story. But my mom and dad, when they were down here, when I had to kind of go through something, they came down and they stayed down here in this trailer that I'm in right now. And like, they're very supportive. Just everybody in my life. My band stuck with me through all that stuff, and they've been through with me through a lot of stuff, and they've been so great. So like I say, I don't know why or how they did all that, but I'm so grateful that they did. So
yeah. What approach seemed to work best for you too? Like, were people hard on you to quit drinking, or were people supportive in a different way, if that makes sense?
Yeah, like I would probably have to lean on my band leader on this one, because he was always extremely respectful to whatever I was doing. Like, he was like, hey man, okay, well, hey, this didn't work before. Just, like, you've tried to drink and play and do all that stuff before, but if you say you're a big boy and you can handle it, then I'm going to trust you, to handle it. My mother-in-law is another big one that, she was very like, you can't, like she was very hard on me on that. My mom was too, I think, my dad didn't quite understand it, but I think my mom understood that I was an alcoholic. I just wasn't ready to admit that yet. And was if she knew that I was drinking, she could always pretty much tell. I think mothers can tell when their sons are drinking and they shouldn't. And that was I know that was extremely hard on her, but she's my mom. She's never gave up on me and always, and like to this day, it doesn't matter. Like one time they picked me up drunk in Calgary when I was going up for a show or whatever. And she often says, like, every time she picks me up in Calgary, she can't not think about that time she picked me up, and she knew that I was, so it's really hard on, and I think that was something that AA helped me with too, because learning your impact on other people and what they go through. Like my wife is really great because like, now she knows that, I've sort of found recovery. She wouldn't have come back if, and somehow when she came back, we got pregnant, which is the craziest thing ever. And I was like, oh God, now we got to deal with this. Oh my God. I was like, call my sponsor. My wife's pregnant. What the hell do I do?
Speed dials.
Yeah. But it was like, the thing is like, hey, this is a good thing. And this is a gift from God. And God obviously thinks that this is the time to do this. And, and it's just something I never had before. And I think they recognize now that I have that. Like, I think my mom even recognizes that I have that. And even my band leader, like they're like, oh man. And they will often say, like, we'll be on the road and they'll be like, oh man, it is the way, like my buddy Casey, who's my band leader, tour manager, has been for 13 years, was like, man, like the way Aaron, like he's even told Victoria, like my wife, Victoria, the way Aaron handles himself in some of these situations, like where before, even if he wasn't drinking, like there was going to be some shit going down. Like Aaron's going to lose his mind. And just like in Casey, there's been times where Casey's like, oh, okay. That's not how you usually react when things like this happen.
Right.
So like that, and that's the gift, man. Like that's the gift of letting go, letting God one day at a time. I just need to get through today, not have a drink. And that's a win. If I do that today, that's a win. Yeah. And it's a win every day. So it's like, yeah, there's so many blessings,
Yeah.
And I'm grateful even for us having this conversation. And there's so many times in my life that I will have an AA meeting in an airport in Atlanta or Minneapolis with somebody I don't even know, really, where it's like you just these kind of serendipitous things and be like, oh no, actually I don't drink, and oh, neither do I. How long you been at, And all of a sudden, before you know it, you're having an AA meeting in a place where you never thought that was ever happened for you. Yeah. So, I really do believe that, God is looking out for us and our kind, and puts us in these situations to be better than we ever were. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, that's incredible, man. Thanks for sharing that, dude. And thanks again for joining. Just one more question to wrap things up. If anybody's listening that's struggling to get started or stay on the path, what would you say from your own journey?
Yeah, you got to find, I would have never got so plugged into AA if I didn't have that recovery center making sure that was something that I did. Like I went to a meeting and got sponsored. Without that step, I wouldn't have committed myself as much as I did. And I just know me. I'm just like, I got it. I could do this. But my biggest thing, and I even say this during shows, is like, if anybody's going through a hard time, like you have to be able to ask, you have to ask for help. Right. And don't be scared to ask for help. Don't think that there's nobody out there that can help you, because there is. And like, that's just the truth of it. So I've always thought, and I've always told other people, it's like, you got to find, it's not even just about going to an AA meeting, like go to several different ones until you find one that you feel resonates with you. Because like my first meetings that I went to when I didn't admit that I was an alcoholic, I often wondered, I was like, man, if I would have really searched and went and found this other group that I found, maybe I would have stuck around then, and how good would my life be now if I had done that? So I always just encourage people, you can go and sit there and you don't have to say anything if you don't want to. and, and just try and find somewhere where you go, oh, I really resonate with that or that or that. And it's because it's really about that first getting plugged in and feeling like you're plugged in.
Yeah.
That helped me continue to go back and be like, oh, this is actually helping me,
Yeah.
because the first few times I did it, I didn't feel that way. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's just like, if you go in and you don't feel that way about that specific group or whatever, the whole thing is I could go back to that group now and probably feel like I'm totally plugged in, So it's like, I think that's kind of the main thing. But if it's a problem and it keeps coming up that it's an issue, do whatever it takes to get to a place to where because it is so worth it to do it. It's so everything in my life. Yet, do I have problems? Yes, I have problems. But I'm busier now in a good way than I've ever been in my whole entire life. Like, I think what I was after before, I feel like I've been given all those gifts, and like, I'm stressed. Yeah, of course, I've got a million things to do. Every day I have things to do. I run a business. I'm an artist. I do all of these, I have a child, I have a wife. There's all these people that are pulling me in all these directions, there's tons of things to do, but it's like, there's the bottom line is like, it is, your life is so worth it, to be able to get it fixed. And, and it's not going to be what it looks like. It's going to probably be better. And so I always encourage people to, and I hope this song Drink in Hand encourages people to find that place in their own life, and I'm always willing to talk AA and talk shop with anybody. So anybody that reaches out to me and is in that place of just now getting sober, like, reach out. Like, I have no problem talking to people about it. It's such a gift that I have now, and I only get to keep it if I give it away. So.
Yeah. Well, beautiful, man. Thank you. And yeah, just to hit on there too, you mentioned there earlier too, other times you tried, it was the white knuckling thing, and I think that's one of the biggest things. We got to get out of our own way in that sense. Let other people help us out that have been there, they've got the map. Like, we got to let people help us.
We do. We have to, and we're not going to be able to do it alone. If there's anything that I learned in my life and I'm still alive to say, it's that, because there's no way I would have been able to do this on my own. There's no way. There's just there. Yeah. You think there's a way, there isn't. I'm telling you, there's no way.
Yeah.
You got to let other people in. So, man, this has been so fun, man. I'm so happy to talk to you today. So,
anything for closing, or are you good there?
I think I'm good. I feel like I've said it all. Stream drinking hand. There you go.
Yeah.
Stream drinking hand, so Eloise can have shoes and clothes and all that fun stuff. So
yeah. Well, if you ever come to like Southern Ontario area, man, I'll be on the lookout for a show. I'll make a
absolutely.
Show. Well, there it is. Another incredible episode here on the podcast. Huge shout out to Aaron. Be sure, if you could connect with anything or just want to send him a thank you, I'll drop his Instagram down in the show notes below, Aaron Goodvin. And I hope everybody's doing well. The end of July. Summer's going quick for those of us that aren't living in Arizona or Florida or somewhere else. Thank you guys, as always, for listening to the podcast. If you haven't left a review yet, jump over to Apple or Spotify. Drop a 5-star, leave a written review on Apple. It would mean the world, and I'll see you on the next one.